Welcome to Educational Truth. This channel was started to better educate the average person on various political topics. While I don't claim to be a political expert, I'm still learning a lot, and this channel is not intended to provide the ultimate solution to every problem ever encountered. It will hopefully serve to provide a general understanding of the topics we will cover. Let me say I will also be offering a lot of opinions. You can choose to disagree if you want, that's perfectly alright. Just don't go crazy in the comment section because I won't bother to engage in petty arguments with would-be Platos. This is an educational channel, not a discussion forum. The main topic of this channel will be communism. What it is, what it isn't, what if it's even possible, what is generally assumed to be. But we'll also touch base with subjects like LGBTQ, feminism, social justice, liberalism, conservatism, etc. Topics relevant to the political climate. This video is the perfect summary if you have a paper due on communism but don't know anything about it and have only maybe heard something about it once in junior high. You'll actually probably end up knowing more about communism than all the teachers and profs in your school after this short video. Unless one of them is a communist, of course. Now that's been spelled out, we can get down to it. What is communism? According to Karl Marx, who we refer to as the father of communism, communism, put simply, is the abolition of private property. Does this mean that in communism everyone will share the same house, clothes, and car? No, although many people mistakenly assume this at first glance. Things like clothes, books, and PlayStations are what we'll call personal property. Private property is things like factories, large tracts of land, shipyards, things like that. Basically the means of production, or things that produce goods. As Marx wrote, communism deprives no man of the power to appropriate the products of society. All that it does is to deprive him of the power to subjugate the labor of others by means of such appropriation. In other words, you'll not be able to personally own a factory, the power to subjugate the labor of others, for instance, but everyone will still own their personal effects, so to speak. So if no one person owns the means of production, who does? The government? No. The means of production are communally owned by all members of the society. Notice that communally and communism share the same root word, community. So communism in its pure form is a stateless, cashless society in which the means of production are owned and operated by the people who work in said means of production, and the fruits of common labor are distributed to each according as they have need. Needs includes pleasure and leisure, just to be clear. As you can see from this definition, communism is not a form of government, it is an economical model, or an order of society. This may seem counterintuitive, but nevertheless it is true. If you ever heard of the Soviet Union or other so-called communist countries, you may be surprised at what you just heard, because all of them have had governments and money. USSR stands for Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. As the name implies, Soviet Union was not one country, it was a collection of countries that were attempting to build communism by the implementation of socialism. What's socialism? Socialism was termed by Marx and subsequently more directly by Lenin as the intermediate stage of a society while transforming from capitalism to communism. Basically, workers have their basic needs met and earn goods based off of productivity or how much they contribute. Surplus production or profit is taxed and used to benefit the society as a whole in the form of social programs. This is managed by a people's government, meaning a government that claims to espouse communistic principles. Socialism, too, is an economical model, but it is always paired with a form of government. Democracy, authoritarianism, depends on the time and place. In communism, as stated before, there would be no rich, no poor. The means of production would be communally owned and the fruits of all labor would be distributed to the contributing members of society as each had need. The benefits would be, instead of factories and the like operating for profit, they would be operating for people, or to meet the society's needs. Marx wrote, "In bourgeois society, living labor is but a means to increase accumulated labor. In communist society, accumulated labor is but a means to widen, to enrich, to promote the existence of the laborer." In simpler terms, if the communist society consisted of 10 people and everyone needed a car, the automobile factory would operate until it produced 10 cars and then stop, as opposed to capitalism, in which the factory would continue to operate even after everyone had had enough cars, because more cars equals more profits, and profits benefit the owner regardless of whether they sell or not, because this raises the company's stock value, etc., thereby increasing the profit or accumulated labor. So in communism, less resources are consumed, the workers' needs are met, and they work far less than in capitalism, leaving more time for leisure, the enjoyment of life, or the means to widen, to enrich, to promote the existence of the laborer. Communism also gives gender equality to women and minorities equal status with everyone in society. As Marx said, the workers have no nation, meaning every race and nationality should be united in the fact that they are humans and workers. Regarding government, Marx wrote, "The immediate aim of the communist is the same as that of all other proletarian parties, the formation of the proletariat into a class, overthrow of the bourgeois supremacy, conquest of political power by the proletariat." Like I said, technically pure communism is stateless. Marx was referring to conquest of a political system of a capitalist state in order to gain power and install communism. This is also sometimes referred to as the dictatorship of the proletariat. Dictatorship of the proletariat doesn't mean communism will have a dictator. It means that the proletarians as a whole will dictate their own future. In more familiar terms to us Americans, government of the people, by the people, for the people. Interesting, isn't it? Now, Marx was very vague about how a communist society would be structured without a government system, and I personally am not too sure a stateless society is even possible. Thus, I favor what I will now refer to as democratic communism, meaning a continuation of the dictatorship of the proletariat. This government would ideally be spread out and decentralized as possible with lots of accountability for public servants, etc., and have a direct system of democracy, meaning the people would not vote politicians in office who then make choices, but rather vote directly on issues when whatever is the majority verdict, the public servants have no choice but to carry it out. Well, that sums up our introduction to communism with my preferred version on the end there just for good measure. I am aware that this has been a very brief introduction, and this topic is much larger and far more complicated than we have touched on, but hopefully this is a good beginning for a continued study in the following videos. If you found this video interesting and informative, please hit like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and once again, I hope this has been educational and helped spark an interest in learning more about the subject.